Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, D&D Beyond, Thieves Gallery, the historic drop of the full stat blocks for every single hero in the second D&D American blockbuster attempt, and two villains, okay? And today we're going to talk about medium humanoid and how two words are changing the future of Dungeons and Dragons and have major ramifications for Dungeon Masters and Dungeons and Dragons players. Ooh, boy, am I excited about this stat block collection, right? So it just tells so much about Dungeons and Dragons. So one, we get the Dungeons and Dragons, D&D Honor Among Thieves arrives in less than 3 weeks. And we have all of the stat blocks, and they are canon. These characters, every single hero from Honor Among Thieves, all the main players are fully statted within D&D 5e, and they are available, and they are being given away for free to anybody who has a D&D Beyond account, and anyone who recently deleted their account or listened to others and canceled their subscriptions, they can go kick rocks. And they are literally just kind of standing out in the cold and know nothing about what's happening, about the most major event that's happening in all of tabletop role-playing games right now. Okay, listen to this. So I've been combing through it, and I'm just reading all of it together, and I realized something, right? So I did a video on Doric, and I said, Doric is a tiefling druid. Wrong. Okay, and this is and I keep talking to you about D&D canon hardbacks. This is D&D canon or D&D Beyond canon content. D&D Beyond canon content, and increasingly that is incredibly important, right? It was, and this is interesting because what's happening on D&D Beyond, right? So previously D&D Beyond was, oh, hey, you created a D&D canon hardback, and here's an cells interlinked, an interlinked content guide that just presents what we've already presented before. But what's incredible is there's no one in Dungeons and Dragons who doesn't want to see these stat blocks, right? And there is no one in the OSR or the Indie, and the reason why is they have to see what's being done, because they have to see how hard they're being beaten, what their competition is, or, oh my gosh, I'm an OGLer, so of course I'm going to copy this a week later, and I need to see the original source, because I'm nothing but a pile of copy energy, right? So this is canon, right? So I can say to you right now, I was wrong when I said Doric was a tiefling, okay? And the reason why is this sets canon, right? And guess what, okay? Doric is not a tiefling. She is a medium humanoid. And this is very important to understand. These are the two words we're talking about today. Medium humanoid. It is applied on every single character in the stat box, in the Dungeons and Dragons, in the D&D Beyond, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, Thieves Gallery, stat block suite. Like, this is a suite of stat blocks, and not a single one of them, okay? Now, we've abandoned the word race, and we've replaced it with species, right? So Dungeons and Dragons has load-bearing walls. Right now, if you tell somebody you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, any engaged dungeon master will say, what is your species and your class? They will ask you that because it will answer 100 questions, right? And you're going to say, I'm a dwarf bard, right? Well, what is Doric? And I said, hey, Doric, this is really special. And, this wood elf enclave brought in Doric, right? And that's important because she's a different species than them. That may not be correct, right? The reality is we don't know what species any of these characters are. They are a medium humanoid, right? And there are species, so humanoid is an infrastructure over word, right? So humanoid means 6 feet tall, okay? Generally the same shape as a human, right? 4 appendages, that kind of thing, right? So basically, what's really fascinating about the D&D Beyond, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, Thieves Gallery content is that species is very carefully left out of every single entry, and not a single one of them is defined as even having a species, right? Now, first of all, this is going to melt the OSR's minds. They're going to be so upset and so frustrated, right? And I will say, actually, you know what I mean? I'll give them their flowers when they deserve them, right? I don't like this either. I don't like the fact that Doric is very clearly a tiefling, right? No other species in Dungeons and Dragons grows horns from their head, and tieflings are tieflings. In fact, nothing but tieflings grow horns out of their head. She is a tiefling. Every single clue points to the fact that she's a tiefling. But the D&D canon, CANON, and I get tons of pushback for saying, Scott, you're always, comparing D&D to the Bible. It's so similar, man. like every D&D person who cares about Dungeons and Dragons, and every tabletop role-playing game person in the world right now is looking at this in high detail, right? Because they're saying, well, this is the authoritative source, right? And that's why knowledge workers are crushing this world, and every manual laborer in the world is like, has to look at their watch to say, did my job go away from automation yet, right? Because this is the point, right? If you authoritative source is incredibly important, right? And the authoritative sources on these say each one of these characters, their species is unlisted. Why? Because Dungeons and Dragons has had their hair caught on fire 15 times over species, right? Which used to be called race, right? It is so incredibly dangerous. And then here's the other thing. Dungeons and Dragons is under strain and stress that is absolutely unparalleled. I look at the, Dungeons and Dragons scratches its butt, and everybody's like, you did it wrong. And I'm not kidding. Like, they do anything that anybody doesn't like, and there's 1,000 videos up within 24 hours, right? Especially on gender, preference, race, right? And now if anybody's like, whenever they make a species, immediately people are like, what human race does this connect to, right? And they get stung on this again and again and again, and they're sick of it. And I have incredible sympathy, because like Warhammer 40K, good Lord, are you kidding me? Right? We get complaints on Dungeons and Dragons. Warhammer 40K, the entire Space Marine group is like, oh yeah, they're all clones of the White Overlord. Are you kidding? Like, you're saying all the Space Marines are like white clones, and they're all just white dudes, and there's no women? Oh, and they're like, no, we have one chapter of Battle Sisters, right? And it looks like they're all white too. The diversity problems in Warhammer 40K are 10 to 100 times worse. 10 to 100 times worse than D&D, and they don't get no flack. Nobody cares. Nobody writes articles. There aren't 1,000, YouTube video commentary videos the next day if they do anything, right? And so D&D has to pay the diversity price that no one else does, because there is such hyper close attention to what Dungeons and Dragons does, right? And so that is why every single character is a medium humanoid, and there is not a species listed on a single one of them, right? That, in my humble opinion, that's why, right? All right. So you gotta look at this, man. This is a first. That's we've never seen 7 statted important characters that are critical to a story, and the dungeon master's first question, what's your species? What species in class? Cannot be answered. That is fascinating. All right. So this is brought to you first. All of the characters in a D&D Honor Among Thieves have unknown species. Like, that's by canon, right? I've told you my thoughts on this. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing and have a wonderful millennium.